So I call the working meeting to order, it's 6:03. Last month, the month before, we had a vacancy when, last month, when Mike Schaefer resigned. I'm going to be appointing Bill Poquott. We don't have a key for you because Mike hasn't given us the key back yet. When we get it, we'll get the key for the building. We'll get you a mailbox and everything. So Joe will swear you in, and then you can sit here.
Stand, raise your right hand, repeat after me. I, William Poquott,
I, William Poquott,
do solemnly swear that
do solemnly swear that
I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of trustee
the duties of trustee
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Sign on that line, please. Let me get out of the way here.
You're impeding progress now.
It's a small room, small room. Not me.
You're not gonna be able to put in there for the video, right?
Yeah.
You wanna switch?
It used to be a lot thinner.
That or-
Okay, so we're gonna start with the working meeting. Okay, item number 1, Stevens Path. Did we order the gravel? John?
So, did we say we needed 3 yards last week? It was just going back and forth. Do you call, do I call?
You were gonna call.
Do you want me to call?
Yeah,
Okay.
you were gonna call.
That's
Yeah.
when you said that's why I think we did. Lost on how the ordinance done. I'll tell them I'll have them delivered this week. You want to have anything into it? Is that fine?
Yeah, we'll send an email of the date that's coming.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna have them drop off up here, so this way you can have them downstairs. You can take it downstairs and still working out.
Yep.
And one more parking lot, I don't know what you want to do with that. I told you
Or are you
that.
getting prices for topsoil, grass seed, lawn mowing, or what you wanted? That was the last time I thought.
Okay, did we decide if we're gonna definitely put grass there? Is that?
No, we're waiting to get a price for topsoil, grass seed, and for.
Do we really need topsoil?
We
I
do,
mean,
you're gonna
this-
put down grass seed, right?
this
This
top-
is
that's
what we
stone
discussed
job,
last
you know.
week.
I guess we could get an expert in, I'm no expert.
Is it necessary to put, I mean, just spending money that's not, I mean, you can't put seed down, I mean, even if it's just thatched and putting seed.
Well,
on
we're
the
not
stone.
gonna see that, first we're scraping, right? Because we
Okay.
move the existing forward. And then what's gonna be left, we don't know. So,
It's the dirt that was down there before we put the rocks down.
yeah, but they're not kind of infiltrated. We need to get a, we decide we can do it, but we're not gonna put topsoil down, but we should.
Well, I just don't wanna see you bring the elevation of the parking lot, I mean, it's only really going to the parking lot. I mean, we want to. If you scrape, it'll bring it down, but I mean, I'm just
Yeah,
trying
but if
to,
you wanna scrape it, you're saying you wanna replace it with something.
I want just put grassy down, even if it's
Well-
dashed, even if it's just, there was grass there before, so is it really necessary to bring in more dirt and spend more money for the village? Let's just have it aerated?
I bet if
Yeah.
we scrape it and see what's
Yeah,
there.
can we do that?
Okay,
As long as
well,
it's
to me, I would like to, before we vote on it, we wanna know
I'm
which
voting on
direction
it
to go.
until we have
I
price.
wanna know if we're gonna go down that forking road, and the possibility is that we are gonna have to buy topsoil. At least we know what we're talking about, because we may not choose that option.
I just didn't want to make it Mount on Mall, I mean, there was dirt there before, there was grass there before, the stones moved, the grassy down.
Hey, we talked about this last month though.
We
We
can
said we
vote
were gonna
on
bring
it,
it,
but-
right, we were gonna get a price for this month so that we can make a decision whether it was worth us doing or not doing. So we're not at that point, so why don't we find out what it's gonna cost, even to move that stone is solid. So someone has to come in and aerate it, someone has to come in and do, we need a price for all that before we do it. Yeah? So I'll table that to next month. Committee for GEI, so that was one of the things that Mike was working on, and I spoke to you about it, taking that over. So your best bet is really to speak with Roger Flood, okay?
Do you
So,
have a packet number or plot to file?
Joe, we have the report from GEI in the office, right?
Yeah.
So we can get you a copy of that, okay? So where he's up to right now is that, he was starting to get the data into, a system, and you might know the system, I can't think of what the name is right now, but we wanted to put the property lines in.
Okay.
I started working on the property lines, but I'm not sure if it's gonna run with the same system. So, we were gonna talk to the village engineer and see if he can take the data and move it over. Okay, so when they originally started this back last year, they were gonna meet weekly, but they haven't been meeting weekly. We don't know who's on the committee, we don't know what the committee's doing. So, you'll kind of be like the person that goes back and forth between Raja and the committee, if there is a committee, because I'm not sure who's even on the committee. And then report back to us each month of where they're at and what they want to do.
I can contact GBI, right?
Oh, yeah. Mhm. So who's the person in Laura, right? Wasn't it Laura?
GBI?
Yeah,
Laura Schaefer?
no. No, I forget the
Is it on, in that file?
Yeah,
Well, I'll look at the
okay.
file.
Everything's in the
Yeah.
file.
I'll
I've
go
got her
through
email
that.
addresses and everything else.
Okay.
But Raj has a lot of background, so. Okay, welcome packet, this is where we're up to now. Some of the pictures, like this picture didn't photograph well, so I think we're taking that out. We wanna change this to the dark blue. There was some spelling errors and stuff that have to be fixed. We thought it'd be better to take out this stuff and just keep the pictures. And same thing here, and then center the garbage schedule. And again, take this out, change some of the pictures, and then the last page. So, I can make photocopies and email it, actually I could just scan it in and email it to everybody, so you can look at it and see if there's anything you wanna add or change, and then hopefully we should have a pretty final draft by next meeting. Yeah, yeah, sort of. So, that's where we're at with that. She said to the bills, all right. Yeah, well,
Okay.
do the final one, okay? Okay, number. Okay, trees to be trimmed, you were gonna email us a list with the price last
So that's
meeting.
on my computer, I'll email it to you.
You getting it tonight?
No, no, do I put 3 bids out? Is that what because I've never bid in before, so.
You were
You
supposed to
can walk me
just type it up, the list.
I got it, it's on
send
the
it to us.
computer, I can email it to you, but now
Okay.
is that, now do I have to do that? Do I go do it, or I send that to Joe and Joe puts out 3 bids be it, or how does that work?
Well, from our last discussion, you were gonna meet with Dr. Tree and get a price from them, and we were gonna look at.
You gonna look at that, but you said I still put 3 bids out.
Yeah,
So
I
now do
thought
I go with
3
you to
bids.
3 bids?
Yeah.
Do I, you send that out, how does that work?
Put it all through me and I'll put it
Okay,
for
fine,
bid.
alright. Doctor, he said pretty much it's one day, or services, whatever it is, I said, just write up an invoice and I'll send it to him.
I got a memorandum, a letter from a lady regarding 2 trees that are dead.
Where?
So, I'll
You want me on the
get that back
list?
to you.
What's that?
I'll get that back to you, we'll put it together.
Alright,
That just came in the other day.
okay.
Okay, I think last meeting Betty, she had tree trimming on Van Bart Manor Road, did the landscaper do that?
Yes.
And.
You trimmed all the, I guess it was around the bend that he was talking about? It was around the bend,
Betty's not here now,
on
so-
45, it was on a 45-degree angle right there on that turn.
Uh-huh.
I asked Mike to trim all that back and stay on top of that. Now, is that, if that's on if that's on private property, aren't they responsible for it?
Yeah, but it wasn't on the
wasn't
bend.
Is it on the bend, is that somebody's property? I mean, along that corner?
Well, basically, you're looking at a situation where we've got 50-foot right-of-way, and the roads are about 22 feet wide, so both sides of the roadway would be right-of-way. Whether it's 10 feet or 15 feet or 20 feet and 20 feet, you don't know what the hell.
Well, it's like if somebody has a lawn there, so is the village responsible for mowing the lawn, that's what I'm saying.
No.
That's-
No.
That's what I mean,
Not-
so it's like, this is somebody's plants that they're just not taking care of, is that the situation?
The standard thing is if if you're abutting a roadway,
Right.
and your lawn goes down through the roadway,
Right.
your responsibility
Okay.
is.
That's why I just didn't want to sit here and start putting stuff on this guy. Well, that's his
When
responsibility.
you're talking about that curve,
Right.
that the south side of Van Brunt, after you make the turn to the right, is all ours.
Right. Okay.
That's all
those?
brush.
Okay. All right.
That's the brush they're talking about.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, he said he took care of it.
Okay, and Janet, she had a basic plan, she said that you met with her?
I stopped by her house, but she wasn't there. But I'm going Washington Drive up and down. I mean Washington Drive. So it's when we're Washington Street. I didn't really see any plants. I mean, there's Japanese knotweed, but I mean,
You
some
met with her at
stuff's in-
32 Washington, remember, in August?
I stopped by her house. I didn't speak with her.
She sent me an email that she met with you in August and that she hasn't heard anything back since then.
I had never met her. I stopped by her. I was driving by. I stopped by her house, but there was no answer. But I went up and down Washington. I didn't really. I'm looking for invasive species. It might be the Japanese knotweed.
I don't
If it's in
know.
the preserve, then I mean,
I
are
don't,
we even allowed to go in there, or if it's at somebody's house? I mean, again, the village responsible for it.
all right, I'll have her.
I'm
just
looking.
email
I
you
just. I mean,
back.
like I said, I don't know exactly where she's looking. I know there's some Japanese knotweed up behind the sign when you first make the left. All right.
Okay, so we should start working on a plan when we have storms, so that what we did last year is, if there was a major storm, we tried to take different shifts, you know? And we really were pretty lucky last year, you know? But this year, we've already had 2 trees fall down, just out of the blue. It wasn't even a bad day. And, you know, we have snow coming, hurricane season is almost over. So I think we have to start coming up with something of who's gonna be responsible from this time to this time when there's a storm, and who to contact, because like snow, the residents will, a lot of times they were texting me and Harry and saying, I need more sand on the street, and then we would contact the snow company and they would come and do it. So, now we don't, how are you doing that? So, we need to come up with a plan for that. So I'm gonna start putting something together and then send it around to everybody, and then you can send comments.
Did you say shifts?
Well, I'm not really sure how to handle it, how to do it yet, because Harry just did it. So, you know, if a tree came down, I texted him, came home that night and took it down. You know, if it was snowing, he was out there, you know.
Yeah, well, that was a good system in that we have 2 issues. One is how, among ourselves, how we're going to handle this, but also, for all residents, they're not going to be able to keep track of shifts.
Right.
They have to have a number to call, and then we have to figure out among ourselves how that's going to translate to actually removing a tree or whatever. And, you know, depending on the job, we may not be able to handle it ourselves. We might bring in somebody in a big storm, that's not going to happen. So,
Is there a tree service on call for emergency?
we don't have that.
No.
I don't even know, not that we've ever explored it.
Yeah.
That's, we
Yeah.
have to
There
kind
might
of
be
figure that
something.
one out. But at the very least, I think we need to have a single number that we put out there, so that we know.
Because if that tree that fell down by Walnut Park was up towards Washington intersection, people would be stuck not going to work and so forth.
Well, you know, last week we had
It's
one that
happened.
came down
Yeah,
to
no,
shore
yeah,
and Van
yeah,
Front, you know.
So there should be an emergency tree removal service.
Yeah. Do you wanna check with some companies and see if we could get, okay?
Sure.
Who's she talking to? Did she ask to do that? So I'll tell you about the next month.
What is with a number to call if residents are
Well, we're not-
behind on off hours?
They usually call, they would call us, just call or text us. Yeah,
Just like a personal phone number or
Yeah,
call,
our
call
cell phone.
code?
yeah.
Call code?
Well, yeah, if code wasn't here.
But they're not 24/7.
Right.
I used to be on call.
Right.
You're on call, mostly it's not in a position in any way. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Mhm.
If it's a bad season, I might decide I have a problem with it. But I mean, the occasional call off hours is not so terrible.
Right.
Then the issue is, well, then what? So, I mean, whoever we decide, we have one phone number, and then we have to have a plan that is not necessarily going to be immediate, because if it's in the middle of the night and it's equipment or something like that.
Right.
But we do have an emergency preparedness plan, you mentioned that. And, you know, we may get out there and put warning signs, redirection signs, something.
Right.
So at least people just don't go plowing into it. But you never can account for all emergencies. There's a plane crash or a tree down on the wires or something like that.
Mostly it's, snow and ice, especially like on Chestnut Maple. They'll just call or text and say, we need more sand, or it's, it's too steep to go down, or whatever. Those are the main calls, or a tree fell down, yeah.
If you're
something
gonna
like that.
contact people to come for trees, if it's an emergency, you might also contact the town and just see if we can have some kind of arrangement with them.
Yeah, you should,
Because they're pretty
we
much,
do have a contract with them.
Yeah.
they're set up for it.
Do you have
They
another?
are, they,
Yeah.
24/7, they.
Oh, yeah, Joe had it for you.
Well, they get called out, so it's up, the foreman of the area has to call them out.
Well, whoever you get, you're gonna have to have a certificate of insurance on file. That's gonna cover the period that you,
Yes.
so.
Right, with the town of Brookhaven, we already
They have that.
had that. But we found, that storm that we had, I think 2 summers ago, whatever, that came
Yeah,
through for
yeah.
like 15 minutes. The town was so much more money than the regular tree turn service, but,
Okay.
but that one day cost $45,000 just to get people out of the village, and that was a private company.
No,
So-
you're right, the major thing, it would be more expensive, but I think just like to have one tree, if one tree's blocking the road or something, especially if it's
Just so
on-
that no one hits it, or, yeah, okay.
Just an idea.
Okay, next item, numbering of the drains. We want to come up with a more permanent way to identify them. So I had this, is this the one that you sent me or I sent you?
I sent you one, you sent me one, and I looked at this one, and you can purchase the stickers that are sequentially numbered.
Okay.
But my thought was, they're semi-permanent. They'll wear off, and then when you lose number 136, how do you replace it?
Right,
So I was thinking.
you think the other thing's better?
There's 2 ways. There's,
Okay.
you can get generic stamps that say whatever you want them to say, and in the middle, you can mark. So if you want to mark it that way, if it's worn off, whatever, you just pop another sticker on the right. Or you do a metal stamp,
Yeah.
and it's permanent. It's
So how does the
2-inch
metal
stamp.
stamps go on?
So literally, if you want numbers and letters, you literally take the stamp and hammer it, boom, it's etched into the steel, into the grate itself, not the grate, but the upper portion of the drain, and it's there forever.
I think that's the best way to go.
It's a couple $100 for like a 2-inch set, and then the maintenance stuff, around it. It could be as simple as just one number. I don't know if you want to have, EW 1 through 99, or just put 1 through 99, 01 through 09, and 10 through 99.
Yeah, we can
It's just for our purpose,
Right.
it's not for aesthetics.
It's just so that when I tell
Go to
the
drain.
drain, I didn't have to be out there with them going
Right.
from drain to drain going,
He's got a
this is
map,
it,
all
right?
the drain numbers.
And some of them he could see, but some of them he couldn't see anymore, so.
Yeah.
What about,
Okay.
old-fashioned, stencils and sprinkling?
They come off.
That's semi-permanent. We can do that, but then someone's gonna have to maintain that.
Oh, they can last like years.
That's what's coming off now.
Is that what we got?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, okay, well, that proves your point.
Yeah.
So I'll get the cost on the stamp kit,
Okay.
and we just want numbers, it's even cheaper. Get a 2-inch stamp, 0 and 9.
Yeah, I think
Then we're done.
that's fine.
Okay?
And then you could just email to everyone.
Yep.
You'll have, your email will be set up this weekend.
Okay.
Okay, and then you can set, email everybody with the cost estimate and go from there, okay? Okay. The next thing is the curbing and paving for Highview and Sharon Avenue. So we know from last month's meeting, we couldn't afford bids. They were like $220,000 for the 2 roads, which is 40-something% of our budget. Mike and I went back out there. Mike met with Pasco. They came in at $785 plus $5,500 for the both roads, which includes Belgian block. So I mean, they've done work in the village, we've had no trouble with their work, we have the money in the budget. I think that we should approve it, and have it done with people, or we patch it, one or the other. You guys were saying last month about patching it. It'll be cheaper, but it'll just be temporary.
Well, this bid is a much different bid, I mean, we're looking
Yeah.
at 250,000 last time, so.
Yeah.
196 is $100,000 less.
So,
I think if we can afford to get it done, then this seems like a good opportunity to do it.
I think we can, because we have $80,000 left in the budget right now. And then we have 17,000 that's gotta go on there for Washington. So, and then we have money that next month, the order's gonna come in, and we saved like over $50,000 last year. So we have that money too. So we could use that, we can allocate that to go towards the street and have them done, so. yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff, you wanna talk about the codes?
Okay, so 183, 57, and 50. 183 is zoning. And we're gonna just kind of put that aside for a little bit, because what we, at Frank Schaefer's suggestion, we had such a discussion about various building issues, safe buildings, building permits, that it would serve us well and serve people who want to find out ahead of time by accessing a separate section of the code on buildings. It would have its own chapter, and it would be have sections on all these different things. So, I talked about unsafe buildings, which is 50, as a separate thing, but it's gonna all be together, because we had a quick meeting, and this afternoon we kind of thought that maybe this is the way to go. But it's a much bigger job to write a whole new chapter and then make individual changes to these three chapters. 50 is unsafe buildings, buildings unsafe. And then zoning is 183. 57 is open burning. Do we talk about that separately?
Yeah, you wanna do?
Well, I don't know how much you want me to go into buildings. If we wanna-
No, I just think, you wanna tell the board what you're thinking about doing, so that we can start
Well,
with the draft?
The immediate issue, if you recall, was talking about unsafe buildings and how we handle the process. And it was coming to the board, and we had a vote on it. It was public, and I was a little uncomfortable with that, but Joe, you said that it's kind of required in the law. So my thinking is that we kind of changed the sequence. However, I put all these things into different chapters, where for unsafe buildings, we would have it go to finding or complaint go to the building department first. The building department would then have code investigated. It's your citation. If it doesn't get to the point where the village has to act, an unsafe condition essentially would fall under the building department and the village engineer. So if it's resolved, it never becomes an issue that needs to be aired publicly. If it is not resolved, and we as a village have to take it to a legal resolution, then it's necessary for us to vote on it. It goes to the Board of Trustees, and we vote on it. And it's in a public meeting, so we're satisfying that requirement of law. So essentially, what we're doing is not something new, but we're changing the sequence, as long as it's the letter of the law. And I think it would be faster for unsafe conditions, especially emergency unsafe conditions, because the building department put together right away and code and do a site visit. So that part of it would be a simple change. And I could do that quickly, and then we could kind of put it out there.
I know we have to have a public hearing for it, but we're just thinking about
Yeah.
changing the steps. Can we do that?
So there's a couple things going on. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things going on. First is that you're right, and the zoning code has things in it that shouldn't be in it. Basically, one of which is what you described. It should be out of there. So with respect to the building part of it, which you mentioned briefly, the building and construction code basically. That should be a separate chapter. It should be, there's a model provision that the New York State Department of State has. I think it's section 1203 of the New York State Uniform Building Fire Prevention and Building Code. So the Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code, they have an administrative chapter. So they have all the things that we've been talking about: the fire code, the building code, the plumbing code. But they also have an administrative part, and in the administrative part, they have model provisions that they suggest that every municipality adopt, something like it. It's like 30.
Procedurally?
Right, exactly, like how to get a building permit and things like that. So it's very extensive because it's everywhere from Poquott to New York City. It's supposed to cover. So you can take out a lot of it, but it has some things in it that are really good as far as the steps that we should have, building permits, certificates of occupancy, stop work orders, all those things are in there, and it lays it out, who can do it and who can issue those things and how and when. The other thing about unsafe, so that's to pull the building code out and make it, it's this separate chapter
From zoning.
from zoning and make it at least similar to this model law that they have. And I can get that for you if you want. I actually have it. I can email it to you if you want. I have it in Word, so you can search it. And I have a short version that I made, and I have the full version both in Word. So the other thing is that when you talk about unsafe buildings, the idea with unsafe buildings really is where the board should come in is prior to not to determine whether or not something wrong is happening, because you have to leave some discretion to the building inspector and also to public safety as far as writing tickets. But where the board should come in is prior to the village taking action. The village to remedy, an action to remedy. So if the building inspector drives by or the public safety officer and they think that there's an unsafe situation, they should be able to write a ticket, an order to remedy, and then a ticket without consulting the board. Right, but on the other hand, if the order to remedy or the ticket is ignored, or the unsafe situation is not corrected, you want to be able to have the village have the right to go in and take care of it. That's what you choose to do. But the property owner is entitled to due process. So in that case, that's the case that prior to the village going in and doing the remedy and adding it to the person's tax bill or whatever you decide to do, that's the case where you want to have the village board come in. You don't want to have the village board in the initial determination of whether what's happening is right or wrong. That's my recommendation. So
Well, that's essentially what I said.
Yeah.
So we-
and then an unsafe building is really an unsafe building. It's not grass too high and boxes on the front lawn. It's not really meant for that. The typical unsafe building chapter. The unsafe building chapter is really for an unsafe condition. A house that's had a fire. Different things that we're aware of. That are unsafe.
I don't know if you were at that meeting, but the issue actually came up when we were talking about a particular case in the village, and I had thought that we changed it, and Frank had corrected me, the maintenance of property law, which is now in effect, we did have this change, so
We did.
We did. So there's a disconnect here, because here we have it in one chapter, it's one way, and then for unsafe buildings.
Has to be changed.
So we would be making it consistent. So we already have that model in place. It should be.
So I'd be happy to, you know, if you just call me and give me 1 or 2 days' notice, I'd be happy to meet with you.
Okay.
Have whoever else you want to have in the meeting, and we could go over this. And I can email you samples of what we're talking about.
So you feel like 50, and were you thinking 99 too, nuisance would be easy to just change the layout?
Well, we covered a lot of ground.
Okay.
You know, because we also talked about that, you know, how we don't have really a clear path, just say procedures regarding condemnation. We have issues where we have a stop work order. It's mentioned, but it's really not laid out clearly.
Well, a lot of that is in the international code, you know, so these administrative provisions that I'm talking about, so it's either in the international code under the building code, or it's in the New York supplement. The New York supplement has a lot of provisions in it about how you can, the building inspector can actually do what's called placard a building and order that nobody can reside in the building. The building can't be habitated until the conditions, is that what you're talking about, the condemnation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we will.
What demolition?
Right, so the building inspector has that ability, but that's in the state law. We don't have to have a village, the fact that it's not in our village code doesn't mean that he or she can't do it, it's already in the state law, or the international law.
I think we have it straight in our own mind, because that's what Mike's position was,
Mhm.
basically. You know, there's the law, which is the codes, going all the way up to the international codes. And there's our local codes, plus our local procedures, how we implement the code. And I think really what we were talking about is we don't have clear procedures, 1 through 10, as far as walking this thing through. And I'm not sure that we're even talking about now putting it into code, because that was the gist of our conversation, that some of that stuff really doesn't need to be in codes. So we have to just kind of figure that out as we go, because we did have some stop work orders, we did have things that, you know, and I don't know if you're familiar with that whole scenario there, but, you know, what happens if they
Keep working.
they keep working, or they restart working without having submitted the necessary stuff, and how we handle that. So we have to kind of figure that out. So you know, I certainly don't want to start writing codes and then find, well, we don't need it in the code, we probably don't even want it in the code, we just have to get it straight in our own, among ourselves here, how we handle situations.
So Frank has, and Mike have a good idea what we need to do or don't do, because they've had those trainings at Stony Brook on the codes. So if it's already in the international code or the New York supplement, then we really don't have to redo it. We don't have to devote a lot of time to redoing it, because they already have the procedures in those
They have
codes.
procedures?
Yes. So
We didn't, okay.
I would encourage you to look at, to speak to them, because they know, and then, we could get you to the right section. You can, the international code, you can only download in PDF, you can only view it in PDF, and it's not searchable, and it's
That's what
not.
Mike was saying.
Yeah, I know, it's a nightmare.
It's a pain in the neck. The New York supplement, though, is in Word. You can actually get the New York supplement in Word, and it's several hundred pages, but you can search it. So like if you want to find out